Hey everyone, hope you're doing well this week. Thought a lot about what I want to post this week for my content and video, and it's been a hard one because as I've talked about things, I think a lot about things, and it can be hard for me to stay on certain points sometimes that I start and talk about. And kind of the goal of the channel is not that I have to say everything a certain way or that kind of thing. I have done more editing of video stuff this week and have just generally had a harder time, with this video in particular and the topic that I want to talk about today. But to keep it really on point and a bit more basic, it's important to talk more about a topic that I had touched on a bit more briefly in another video. And that topic is, the process I use to cut down and quit drinking. And, in that video I mentioned, that I had gotten tired of having a very increased level of anxiety to deal with, and that I wasn't dealing with anxiety and social struggles in a very direct way, and that things, as I was drinking, things kind of got covered up, and I would add that aside from things getting covered up, it also steered me away from values that I have. And when we're drinking, we operate at a different level, and sometimes that's not reflective of the people that we are. And sometimes things can happen to us, that just are very impactful in those settings. And without getting too much into a lot of different topics today, I just want to give a couple key things that I would really recommend that could help you navigate these different situations if you're at different points in life and different points of growing up. And so, if you're a college student, you may have heard this idea before, or this kind of topic or discussion. But what I would really say to do is kind of down to three basic things. Number one, if you're going into a situation where you're going to be drinking, it's really important to have a plan in place so that you can take what you know about yourself to know when you need to be done and exit a situation, and rejoin friends at a later time. Number two, I would say, in line with the plan that you have, you can still participate in things like drinking games or games, but just be upfront and tell people that you're not going to have more than what you plan. So, if that means you're just sipping on a water while you're playing the game with people, that's fine. I'm saying that, because in my experience, there was times when I had extra drinks that I didn't need to have. It wouldn't have, having extra didn't make things any funner or better. With anything coordination wise, if you're playing some kind of game or something, you just get worse at it. So it's like a negative cycle, So I think the third thing is, remember to remember to ask people more questions before you go into these social situations. Often for myself, I didn't have a really good ability to converse with people all the time. And I was generally a quiet person, and it would have helped me more to talk with people, in down times, when people were just, eating with me or, we were playing video games or something. It would have helped me to talk more with folks about some tips of maybe things to do, and, um, ask for help, from your friends or roommates where you can, so that they can help you kind of navigate through some things. And um, with the third item there that I mentioned in terms of like asking and trying to learn, I think the other thing that is critical to remember is that sometimes you may, even if you have a plan or you are trying to think about what you're doing, you might have moments where you kind of go outside the plan or try to do something different from that. And, if you've been talking to your friends about how you're handling these situations and stuff, that'll give them an extra cue maybe to remember that, what you had chatted about with them, and they may be able to help you kind of step in and remember what your goals are. And, I'm not saying this happens all the time, but what I would say is that even, people watch out for you. I mean, the experiences I've had while, I've been drinking, people have helped me. There's a really nice student that I didn't know super well, but I was at a party not too far from my house, and I left, and somebody went with me and made sure I was okay. And I really want to say thank you to the man that did this for me. That's a really nice thing, and I think about that sometimes, and I really just appreciate that. And thanks for doing that. And I want to say the same thing for a roommate I lived with at school. We were coming back from the bars one night, and had drinks and stuff, and probably wasn't in a state where I should be riding my bike, and somebody yelled at me to make sure I got over and probably saved me from getting hit by a car. And so I want to thank my roommate for watching out. And so I think, if you have good communication with people around you, that you have a plan and that you're trying to do things, and that you want to learn about what you might be dealing with in terms of different experiences, is pretty important. And I if it's something that you were able to manage the intake that you have and keep within your plan and guidelines you have for yourself, and you can do that responsibly, I think that's great. And there are, I think, a lot of people that can do that successfully and do all right there. And a kind of key part of having a plan too, I think, is talking with people around you. Sometimes you may be more able to pay attention and be aware of things than somebody else is. And if you can talk about situations where your friends might need help and how you can be there for them, that's really important, because sometimes you got to experience being in those spots where maybe you're not drinking as much or at all, and you might be around others that are enjoying things more. And like sometimes you got to help those folks too and step in. And that's not always easy. Um, but people appreciate it later. They will usually, you know, let you know. And The other kind of uh, audience I want to talk to today is the folks that maybe are a little later on in their drinking experience and are in a situation where they've identified that it has some negatives that outweigh any positives that they might get, and they are thinking about how to cut down and stop. And in line with that last video, I talked about it's important to kind of know what level of behavior you are at and be responsible about how you're cutting down or quitting the behavior. And in line with the first video, like, that's important to do with your medical team and not try to take that on your own. But I think what you can think about with these types of efforts is if you start and take things step by step and you don't try to overdo anything or put any unrealistic expectations on yourself, you've started the ball rolling and you started the momentum towards a big change. And that's what is really critical. And instead of getting caught up in the emotions of like, if I quit or cut down on drinking, I might miss out on fun experiences. I would say it doesn't need to get that complicated. Just things that I've experienced in my life, I could ruminate over things for a lot and be indecisive and not take actions very quickly and, be impacted a lot by uncertainty and, maybe not do things all that quickly sometimes because I can't decide what I want to do. So with kind of that thing in mind, I think what can help speed up decision making or help you put together planning and support outreach for your efforts in stopping is to think about things a bit differently and think about what goals you have in life and how you want to improve your health. And the most helpful thing that I can tell you from my experience since I've stopped drinking is that I'm much better about doing the self-care behaviors I need to take care of myself. And, this could be from things like being better at planning with eating. I still kind of struggle with that, but I'm better than I used to be. The other thing that comes up, with self-care stuff, you think about like drinking, sometimes you're distracted and you're tired. You may go to sleep before you brush your teeth or floss well. And certainly this may not be everybody's experience, but that happened enough to me where I could notice a health impact in terms of like having cavities when I went to the dentist. And since I've stopped drinking, I haven't had any cavities since then. That's over 3 years. And so kind of the message I have to wrap up here is that you don't have to visualize so much and be worried that socially things are going to be hard. Sometimes things are a little bit different socially, if you stopped and you are working on that kind of a thing, but that's okay. And I can be much more present in social situations and have more fun because I'm more aware of what's going on. And that's the thing that is important. If you cut an activity like this out of your life, you don't have to have hangovers anymore. You don't have to get bad sleep anymore. I mean, sometimes you still might, but generally your sleep will be better. You're going to put time into behaviors like more consistent exercise. You're going to tackle problems probably more head on than you might otherwise do. And rather than getting so caught up in, trying to think of every possible pro and con, just think about like, how does my daily functioning when I'm not doing this go up? How does my capabilities to be more aware and more able to handle things that happen to me, how does that impact my day-to-day life and quality of life? And then what you think about is like, is that when you're not doing this, that's every day. Every day something's easier because you don't have this in the mix. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Life is hard enough in general, just with kind of just doing things, without having like substances involved. And the kind of concluding point I would leave you with today is that as you start doing behaviors, they kind of become more part of routines and things that you're doing. And so, things can kind of sneak up on you, and, you might not have a good sense of how something is impacting you until you're kind of later on in your journey with it. And sometimes that can be when it's harder to make changes. And so I'd say, sometimes it is hard to, make that judgment call that you're just not going to choose to open up a situation where you could become more dependent on, alcohol or some other thing to function. But I think it comes back to kind of the two audiences here. There's people that are at different stages of their journey with this activity, and with any stage that you're at, you're not necessarily going to be thinking about the big picture and long term what something might mean for you, but think about the short-term benefits to your functioning and enjoyment of life, and prioritize that over things that you might be thinking about, that socially things might be harder. Because the kind of thing I'm getting at here is that it's not, you can't use everything that you think of to get you worked up. Have a health first mindset and say, I'm better today if I don't do this, and I can better live up to my values if I'm not doing this, and I can live up to what's important to me if I don't do this. And for people being done, you don't necessarily have to think that, it'll be hard to do this for a lot of years. Just take it from the perspective of like, this helps me so much by not doing this today, and I'm more able to do things and work with health conditions I may have and not exacerbate a problem. So with that, I think that's as much as I'll share with you today. I know it was kind of longer again. I'm going to try and work on keeping it shorter, but I think that's a good stopping point. Anyhow, thanks for watching the video today. And if you like this content here, feel free to subscribe or write a comment. And I'm happy to continue keeping to produce more here and uh, share help where I can. So thanks, and I'll talk with you in the next one.